Hello children, in English we can speak in two ways, that is the active voice and the passive voice. We can speak and write in two ways. Now when the voice is how we arrange our subject, verb and the object, and how it is arranged differently. In active voice we use the direct voice, that is when the emphasis is on the subject, the doer of the action, and less on the action itself. Direct active voice is clear and smooth, and it is used for everyday conversation and direct articles. Whereas in passive voice, when the action is more important than the doer is insignificant, is irrelevant, or when we use general truths like the water boils at 100 degrees Celsius, there is no responsibility, you cannot fix responsibility on a certain person, then we use active voices. Passive voices, it is mostly used for research, reports and processes. Like in a recipe, it will be passive voice. So will it be in scientific reports and methods. Now what is the difference between the active voice and the passive voice? When the action is performed by the subject, it is active voice. Whereas when the subject is acted upon by something and the action is, it takes the action, then it is passive voice. Let's consider the structure. For example, in this sentence, Marilyn mailed the letter. The subject verb order is subject, then verb, then object. See, Marilyn is the subject, she is performing the action, that is mailing the letter. So it is direct, clear. Marilyn mailed the letter. Whereas in passive voice, the subject takes the action. It does not perform the action. Like the letter was mailed by Marilyn. Here, the letter is the subject on which an action is being performed. That is, it is being mailed by Marilyn. So, from active to passive, the subject becomes the object and the object becomes the subject. Let's study how we can, for your exam purposes, how we can change from active to passive. These are three simple steps which you have to take place. Say, move the direct object to the subject. Here in the same example, Marilyn mailed the letter. The letter is the direct object here. The direct object means which is nearer to the verb and is directly on which the action is directly being performed. So the letter becomes the subject. We start with the letter and we make it capital because this is the beginning of the sentence. So this is the first part of the passive sentence that you have. Next, place the subject into a phrase beginning with by. So the subject is Marilyn, it will be by Marilyn. Now we have the subject and the object, the letter dash by Marilyn. Now the final part and the most important part is that you have to add an auxiliary verb and change the main verb to the past participle. That is the third form. Here auxiliaries will be auxiliaries of be, is, was and so on. So these will be according to the tense. Please remember that. Here it will be Marilyn mailed the letter. So we have the subject now, the letter was. Was is the be auxiliary here and mailed is the third form of the verb, that is past participle, and then we have by Marilyn. So your sentence is now changed to passive. The letter was mailed by Marilyn. Marilyn mailed the letter is an active and the passive will be the letter was mailed by Marilyn. These are the three simple steps, and you have to remember that you have to use the appropriate auxiliary and the past participle. Then there is how the reverse process to change from passive to active. Again, three very simple reverse steps from the ones we carried out earlier. The sentence now is, we had the passive sentence, the letter was mailed by Marilyn. So the letter was mailed by Marilyn. Here the letter is the subject. So we first have to move the subject to the direct object slot. So it is here. We move it to the end of the sentence, the letter. The letter was mailed by Marilyn. The letter becomes the direct object. Then remove the auxiliary verb and change the verb form if needed. Say from past to past it will not be needed, but from present to past it will be needed. The letter was mailed. Now it becomes mailed the letter. The be form is removed and the past participle is the verb is again reverted to its basic form. And then place the object of the preposition by. What was the object of the preposition by here? By Marilyn. So Marilyn becomes the subject. Marilyn mailed the letter. That is how it becomes from passive to active. The letter was mailed by Marilyn. Here it becomes Marilyn mailed the letter. And the active form, as we all remember, is Marilyn mailed the letter. This is how you make the changes. You can also use the forms of be like being and been according to the tense of the subject.